One of my greatest delights when I go to an open plan kitchen restaurant is watching the chef slice and dice the food and ingredients. Watching them toss, whip, slice and dice the onions, eggs or carrots in quick succession and tossing them in the pot. This is why I enjoy shows like Hell's Kitchen, the chef with the big hat and the big ego shouting at celebrities and showing them how useless they are as individuals because they cannot peel a potato. There's always one person who buckles and breaks into tears but then emerges as the series champion or the people's champion even though they might not win. And they end up saying something like, oh, this is the greatest experience of my life. Anyway, the format of these shows is to cut out the rubbish contestants and to cut out and eliminate the rubbish bits from the cooking. So how do we do the same with our revenue? Let's talk a little bit about improving your profit margins. I once told somebody that I can go into almost any business and save them 5%, 5 to 7% off their costs within 30 days. I've yet to find a business that I couldn't do that with, because as good as people think they are at purchasing or keeping the costs of their business in line, there's always new tricks, there's always new ways or more vital methods of doing things, and I'm going to try and cover a bunch of them right now. So sit back in your seat, grab your pen and start writing these down, because we're going to really increase your profit margins. First thing I want to bring to people's attention is, like a lot of times I'll talk to companies and I ask them, how did you get this price on this particular part of the manufacturing process, for example? And they'll say, well, we submitted for a bid. And I say, really? And they say, yeah. So we know we got the lowest price. That's what they would tell me. And then I ask them, when was the last time you put a bid out? And then they would say, oh, about 2 or 3 years ago. And I say, wow, really? Now, if you haven't bid on something out in the last 3 months, you're probably overpaying for it, because the cycle of business out there is such that every 2 or 3 months you should be rebidding any of your major purchases. And a lot of your ability to save depends on how you write your bid. So a lot of times what happens is you write a bid request, a request for a bid, you put it out to people who are your potential suppliers, and you finally get back a wide range of bids, and the chances are you're going to get that wide range because you didn't specify down to that nth level of detail exactly what you were looking for, the exact specifics of what you needed. So that when you do it for that level, what happens is you're able to get more accurate bids, and there'll invariably be a lower bid who will produce the quality you need when you really need that, have that high specific detail about it. But let's move on, because we've got a lot more stuff to cover here. I mean, think about quantity discounts. Like, you're buying stuff from a supplier and they tell you, buy 100 of these and you pay X, buy 500 and you pay something less, buy 5,000 and you pay even more less. So you're going along and there's all these different levels. So you look at that and you say, well, what do I need for the next 2 or 3 months? I don't want to store too many of these items. So you look to say, well, okay, I better buy at 100 price break or maybe 250 price break. And so you're buying there, and that's where you're buying, at that level. Now, I can't tell you how many times I go into a company and we call the supplier that is being purchased from, and we ask them this simple question. If I give you my purchase order right now for a year's supply, okay, will you deliver those to me monthly at X number of months and bill me on delivery or bill me when they're delivered? And all of a sudden, we're ordering at the 5,000 price break, but we're taking delivery monthly and we're only being billed for the month's worth that they actually ship to us. But we're buying at the discount that they give for the 5,000 purchase. Now, I can't tell you how many few companies ever explore that route, and that's one of the places we go in and knock prices down, knock costs down really, really quickly on purchases like that. And one of the things that you have to be very careful of in business is not to overbuy. And why is that the case? Well, it's because storage costs, it costs you money. There's an obsolescence, like things become obsolete. So there's a factor in there, and sometimes people buy at those higher discount levels in order to get them, in order to get the discounts, and then they end up storing a bunch of things and having products become obsolete, having to dump them later for losses or for much narrower profit margins, and that costs you in your ability to buy and to buy well. So one little used source of purchasing that we find is most companies don't use is something we call cooperative buying. And if we're buying anything that's a normal product for your business, and if you know if you bought at higher quantities you get a bigger discount, well, call some of your competitors, call some similar type of companies, find out what they're buying. If they're buying the same thing, get together with them and buy it with them. And why would you do that? Well, it's because together you will end up with the better pricing. Together you will end up getting it less, and if some of them are competitors, that's cool. They'll get the better buyout, but so will you. You're both becoming more competitive in a marketplace where there's more than just two of you, and if you do it with other companies that are similar to yours, not even competitors, now you've got an edge on the competition. And another traditional source of discounts is cash payments. They want you to pay in cash or within a certain time frame, 10 to 14 days, and they'll give you an extra 2%. But you can take longer to pay because your cash flow isn't great. Well, guess what? I can't tell you how many times we call those companies and we just tell them, we say, hi, our cash flow's tighter, but I'll tell you what, we'll pay you in 21 days. Will you give us the same discount as you give people who pay in 10 days? So invariably, more times than not, they will say they will, but you have to ask. So put on your heading of things to do is to ask. If you don't ask, you don't get. And if you ask, more than likely you'll be able to get. So another time, there's a good time to buy. There's the timing issue. I mean, sometimes you need to buy things when it's time for the model that you use to be changed over. Sometimes you buy things at the end of the month because the supplier has to meet sales quotas and they're willing to discount at the end of the month. I make some of our best purchases on the end of the month. I also survey our suppliers. So when do they need to meet payroll? So do they meet payroll on Fridays? Do they meet payroll on the 21st of the month, on the 31st of the month? Whenever companies have to meet payroll and they're a little short, guess what they do? They offer some of the stuff that they sell at better discounts in order to get the cash quickly to meet the payroll. So if you're a good purchasing person, then these are the things that you need to learn to do to keep your company super competitive.